All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the deep end. This is episode 8. As per usual, behind the scenes, before we hit record, Ari and I just started chatting away, and I swear this happens every single time where one of us will say to each other, "Hey, hold on a second. Should we record this because this could be something?" And so that's pretty much just what was going on. And so we paused our conversation, hit record. Now we're going to pick it back up. And basically, Ari was starting to tell me about Alex Green, who was the most recent guest on Masters of the Market, right? You were telling me that he is in the process of writing a book about the American dream. And that's kind of where we left off. So sorry,
Literally
man.
where we
Why
left
don't you
off.
pick, yeah, why don't you pick it back up from there? I'm curious to know what this
No, you
is.
know what? This we Ryan and I were just laughing because this is literally the whole point of the show. But because, sometimes we do talk almost every day. Some weeks we go a couple days and then we wait until, the deep end. And then I think that overall excitement just to update each other right away, and therefore it causes us to be like, wait, like maybe we should just start recording. Anyways, okay, so I just had Mr. Alex Green. He's the chief investment strategist over at the Oxford Club on Masters of the Market. This was his second time on Masters of the Market. And I think I shared last week, I'm pretty well connected with a lot of these Wall Street professionals and always talking to them. So I had Alex back on because he's writing this book that I thought was really interesting, which is all about the American dream. And Alex was just sharing that a lot of the vast majority of Americans, or people for that matter, actually think that the American dream is dead and that wealth cannot be accumulated as easily as it once was. And so he actually makes the case that the American dream is very much still alive and well. It's kicking, and that's all you have to do is really do what Ryne and I talk about all the time, which is like become the CEO of your life, save, don't spend your money, on ridiculous materialistic things, and invest. And like it's a simple strategy. And again, he's just like making the case that over time we're doing less of that and more of like, I don't know what, like Fortnite and buying, watches, and not anything against Ryan. I just thought, saw you, Ryan. I was like, watches. No, watches are great. But whatever it is, clothes, this, that, like you name it. And we're not even doing it in Ryan's case because now I'm going to make the defense for Ryne. Ryne actually likes watches. He's not doing it for the show and the flash, which is really important to understand.
And I don't buy expensive watches either. Like this one was maybe a few $100, and I'm going to have this for the rest of my life. And this scratches such a big itch for me that I don't feel the need to go really buy any more watches. Like with watches, you get to a point where you feel like you have enough and your collection is complete. And I'm kind of there. I've got like 5 or 6 watches, and I just don't know what other ones I can buy that aren't too similar to what I already have. So I'm good.
Fair.
Sorry.
I was almost going to say, is a watch collection really almost done? Like, can it really almost be done? I had a little watch collection going before.
It's funny because I say that now, but there will be some watch that randomly comes along, and I'll randomly see it, and I'll just need to have it. And you can choose whether or not to act on that impulse, and if you don't, it might go away, it might not. And depending on if it does or not, maybe that's something you listen to. But I think you could ask the same question when it comes to your portfolio. We've kind of talked about this before, but you kind of get to a point with investing after you've done it so long, and you've kind of explored your investable universe. You kind of get a good sense for the companies you want to buy, the ones that you don't want to buy. And over time, I think the ones that you don't want to buy become just increasingly larger, and you kind of feel a sense of contentment with your portfolio. I think as time goes on, Ari's kind of settled more into that, with his consolidation. I feel like I'm at a good place right now where there's not hardly any more companies that I feel like I'm certain that I want to add. But there's going to be, over time, if you're going to be doing this for the rest of your life, there's going to be that one stock that just comes out of nowhere and hits you like a ton of bricks, and you'll have to have it. So to answer your question, no, it's not ever completely done, I suppose, but at least in my experience so far with watches and with investing, there are long stretches of contentment. But things can come along that will throw that contentment out of whack. And that's kind of I think that's kind of the fun of being a collector, both in terms of watches and stocks. So anyway, that was a huge sidebar conversation. Going back to the American Dream thing, though, where were you at with that? I mean, because
Yeah,
you were hitting on something good there.
I gotta finish up one thought
Yeah.
on a dad joke that now I'm just dying to make, which was, I guess we'll see in due time when Ryne adds to his watch collection. That was a terrible.
Oh, I see.
Every time you were like, "We'll see in time," I'm like, "Yes, we will, my friend." You know?
I didn't catch on to that, man.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. Yeah, I'm prepared with dad jokes for kids in the future. Anyways, um, we have the American dream. The question is it dying? Is it already dead, or is it very much still alive? Alex Green goes on to make the case it's very much still alive. We chit chat about the American dream, and then I kind of hone in on Alex's thoughts on 2025. And I mean, what's crazy is just in the last few weeks of Trump now being in office, I mean, we've really seen a lot happening in the stock market, just like right off the bat, especially with tech and AI and yada, yada, yada. So I asked Alex his thoughts on tech and AI in 2025. I asked Alex all about even dividend investing in dividend stocks. Is it worth it this year under a term under Trump? Alex says yes, just so everybody knows that. Dividend stocks are, in fact, worth it, regardless of the administration. So I just want to make that clear for everybody. But we had this phenomenal conversation. And what Ryne and I were talking about just before I got to the American Dream was Wall Street professionals and what they're buying and what they're selling, and that how incredibly important that is to understand. So what I like about Alex is he's actually a guy who puts his money where his mouth is. And so whatever stocks he actually talks about, he actually does go ahead and invest into them. And he is there, of course, for the Oxford Club, which is a club all for investors. Of course, you got to pay to be a part of that. But, you know, when Alex joins, that's why I like having him on. And I almost want to piggyback off of where we stood last week when we were talking about how some people come on to the show and, yeah, they have, you know, their pitch, if you will. And I just saw more comments, you know, by the way, under this video, too, that was like, oh, Alex is selling something. I'm like, isn't everybody? You know, but at the end of the day, this guy offered 25 to 30 minutes worth of such good insights on the year ahead of us, tech, China, like what we could expect. Brilliant, insightful guy. But end of the day, what I wanted to talk about is how Alex really is an individual who puts his money where his mouth is as a Wall Street professional. And more than that, his case for the American dream is so pertinent, I think, as we all, as investors, move forward into 2025, because I feel like we're losing a sense of our investor senses, if you will. I'm thinking of like Spider-Man in my mind, you know, but like, where are we as investors when the market pulls back? Like, this is a perfect example that the market pulled back a bit not too long ago, a couple of days ago. Panic in the streets. Investors, buy, go and buy. And I just tweeted something a little earlier, maybe 2-3 hours ago. But I basically said, if you're thinking in days, you're killing yourself. As an investor, you have to think in decades. That's when you get paid. And just knowing, I mean, that doesn't matter what you're invested into. Think in decades from now. And you're going to have, I think, an entirely different outlook, perspective, and I even think strategy for your portfolio. I mean, in knowing, Ryne, you have, you know, a few decades under your belt, doesn't that make you feel more comfortable?
Oh yeah, man. You know, we're about the same age. I'm 31, you're 30. And sure, it feels older than being 20 or 25 years old, but still I think about my life and I think, gosh, I still feel like I have so much time. Like I'm getting older, I'm starting to get a couple of gray beard hairs, but man, I still feel so young. And it's exciting to know that we've started this thing that's going to take decades to play out, the rest of our lives really to play out. But it's just cool to know that we've given ourselves that super long runway. And just seeing the progress that's been made in the few short years I've been doing this, it makes me really excited for the multiple decades that are to come. And, life's going to be lived either way, whether we're investing or not. And I think about just time and patience and, how long it takes for this stuff to play out. And I think during this period where time is going to move regardless, I would rather do things, just continue to make these incremental steps forward that over that long period of time will result in something just incredible. It's cool to know that you are playing the long game and keeping that in your mind at all times when on the day to day it does feel difficult and there are days where it feels like you're taking steps backwards or you just can't seem to get your portfolio or your dividend income to the level that you want. But you have to keep that finish line, that end goal in mind, knowing that it's going to be another couple of decades and hopefully knowing that in the long run, if you just stay consistent and disciplined, things will work out just fine. Hopefully that should make these gyrations, these periods of time where things are going down or it feels like it's not moving fast enough. Hopefully holding that in your mind will make those periods a lot easier to bear. Because you do need that. It does take a lot of patience, obviously, and that's certainly the hardest part to all of this, I think.
I think I want to say weeks ago, it must have been, because this deep end chat is still quite young, but it was at the tail end of 2024. I think we were talking about how often we look at our portfolios in the stock market. And if I recall correctly, you correct me if I'm wrong here, you were sharing how you wanted to look at your portfolio less. Where do you stand with that? And have you been able to successfully implement, looking at your portfolio less?
Yeah, it's so funny, man, that you bring this up because I was just thinking about this earlier this morning. So far, I'm successful. I actually haven't checked my portfolio today. I've probably gone from, on average, looking at it like, periodically throughout the day to now maybe checking it once per day. And I think that's a fine amount. I don't know. I might look at it less. I might keep it around this. I don't really have a plan from here, but I was thinking about this earlier today, thinking, as much as I love investing and as much as I love being in tune with this stuff and studying this stuff, and, I'm certainly a hobbyist of all of this, and as much fun as that is, I also have a lot of other things that I'm interested in and a lot of other things that I'm doing. And I was thinking about all of those different things this morning because I'm kind of a busy bee. I tend to have like a lot of different interests and a lot of different projects going on at one time. I'm always kind of tinkering, and having those things I think has really helped me not be so fixated on these daily gyrations. Like, for example, I'm into working out, I'm into running. This is when I was running before this, which was when I was thinking about all of this stuff. I've just I've been exploring some other hobbies lately too. I'm a big into reading, as we talk about. I was researching how to brew beer at home because I know you can buy kits for stuff like that. I can't find a good stout here in Las Vegas. I love stouts, but I've really struggled to find places that sell them on a consistent basis. Trader Joe's every once in a while. So that made me think, maybe I can just learn how to do it myself and start making it at home. So started researching some of that. I don't know if I'll end up going down that direction. I've always been kind of interested in poker, and I've read some books that talk about how there are applications to investing. And so I've kind of been thinking lately, this week, really, these last 3 days, started watching poker. I started playing it online just for free. I knew about 80% how to play, but now I've like, okay, I understand the ranking of the hands and stuff like that. So I'm starting to get deep into that. But all of this is to say I've got all of these different other things that I'm interested in outside of investing that I think help me stay away from every every little thing that's going on in the market. I'm kind of living life, I suppose. And that has ultimately helped me kind of check out from my portfolio. Not to the extent where I don't know what's going on. Like we're knee deep in earnings season right now. I'm listening to earnings calls, getting caught up on all of those, trying to get one a day. I'm still doing my book notes, still, at least checking to see if things are okay, which they are. But I'm not, I've kind of taken a step back from just seeing every little bit of news, not so much reading Seeking Alpha articles every single day, which I was before. I just don't know how helpful that is for me at this stage of the game. So I'm kind of, I guess, refining my process and how involved I want to be on a day to day and what that looks like for me. And I think as time goes on, it's like listening to earnings calls is still very helpful. Going through just staying in tune with that, I think is big. And, knowing the big stuff that's going on a day-to-day basis, but I'm not super obsessed with it every single minute of the day. And I know this is such a long-winded response, but does all of that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it actually brings up a really interesting point, which I'd love to know from everybody out there watching. What do you do to occupy your time to keep your focus off the stock market, which is where it shouldn't be 24/7, because that would be unhealthy. And I think it would diminish your returns over time because, again, as Ryne shared, with the tendency to look at the market more often, the more fear creeps in, the more there might be the chance that you sell or you don't buy because of X, Y, and Z versus having a consistent process and just doing the deal. I also occupy my time with a lot of extracurriculars, if you will, in terms of like outside the stock market. And I just think it's actually contributed to a lot of my success that I have seen, because I think we can so easily do like one or two things. I was just thinking about my schedule, earlier today and yesterday, because I was talking to someone and they shared with me, they were like, oh, I'm too busy. And I get it. Things in life come up. But also in my head, I'm like, too busy. Like, what are you doing that's busier than me? And I only say that like in my head because at this point, I'm wake up at 5:15. I run with the dog for about an hour and a half.
Wow.
I come back here. I get some work done on, and some financial stuff for YouTube or, my own personal stuff. I'm actually doing some studying as well. And then I come back late afternoon, go for another run with the dog. She's a German Shepherd Kanani mix for any of you who have seen her in my videos rather recently. I've had some of those questions pop up. And then I usually sit with 1 or 2 to 3 individuals for like some personal coaching per day, whether that's phone call or in person. And then from there, my work day begins because I picked up, as everybody knows, another position. And so that takes me, into the night. But I'm also 3 podcasts. It's this one, the deep end. Or I shouldn't say 3 podcasts. This podcast with Ryne, and then I have my YouTube channel, and then I also have another podcast or channel I'm starting up rather recently, more on like life outlook and stuff. And that just like all my time is like gone, and it helps me focus in on what I need to do and like just executing as best as I can execute. And the stock market is not somewhere where I want to be more than like 2 minutes a day. Like I'll
Yeah.
look at the portfolio and I'll give the app like a scroll just to see which holdings of mine, please God, are in the red. Because I want to buy in the red. Like for example, Google was down today, and I threw in another $1,000 into Google. The tech sector was down at the beginning of the week. I think I threw in like $2,500 into VGT. I'm there for 2 minutes, and then I put it down, and I'll never look throughout the day again, unless I think the market may dip a little lower.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful my schedule is so packed, because I think, Ryne, if it wasn't, I would be obsessively looking at the stock market.
Yeah, man. And I think the beauty of the style of investing that we both adopt is that you don't have to be in it every single second of the day. You can take some time away. You can take a step back, and it can continue. If you're investing in good companies, things should continue to grow in the background of your life. You don't really have to tend too much to them. Obviously, you want to stay in the loop generally on what's going on with them, the good and the bad, and understand where they're at and adjust accordingly if you need to. But beyond that, it's pretty low maintenance. And some people might be hearing this conversation so far and think, man, these guys are lazy. Warren Buffett and all these big hedge fund managers, they spend every day pouring over 10Ks and thinking about this stuff 24/7, and that's the only way that you can beat the market. And it's like, yeah, I understand that on one hand, and when I think about how I spend my time, there's certainly more that I could be doing as it pertains to investing, but at the end of the day, like I don't have any ambitions of being the next Warren Buffett. And maybe that's a cop out thing to say, or maybe that's like a lazy way to look at all of this stuff, especially considering, it is my job technically. But at the end of the day, I'm an enthusiast. I'm a hobbyist of this. I don't feel this drive to be like the best investor in the world. I just want to steadily build wealth over time, and I'm certainly hitting that mark, and that's good enough for me. I'm doing it in a way that's sustainable and that I have fun doing. And at the end of the day, you know, like I was kind of talking about a few moments ago, this is just one of my many hobbies. I also like doing other things. I'm a human being. I have a wide range of interests. I know Ari, you do as well. And man, I want to try and um, I want to try and entertain all of these interests as best as I can. So while at the same time not adding too many different things to my plate, but I've got a good two, three, four different things in life that I'm interested in, and I don't want to. I don't. I'm just not super obsessed with stocks 24/7, and part of the reason that I choose this style of investing is because I don't want to constantly be in it. I want to be able to do these other things I'm interested in too.
It's just making me think right now about a recent
And I
message I
think that's
got.
the American dream right there, partly, which I want to circle back to. I'm sorry.
That
I'm
is
sorry.
the American dream.
I'm sorry for cutting you off. I really want to
No.
get back to the American dream at some point in this conversation because I can't stop
First of
thinking
all,
about it. But
touche. 'Cause
okay,
literally, that is the
that's
American
funny.
dream. We're living the American dream right now, man. This is
Okay,
it.
let's hold on to this. I want to hear what you were about to say before I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No worries. I got a message from the truth be told, I was on LinkedIn and I sent a message to a previous intern of mine, or not a message, a post out of maybe she'd be interested in it. She worked at the financial company I worked at before. And, so I sent it words of wisdom from one female investor to another, and anyways, so we got to talking to just catch up where she's at, and she's in France now, and kind of just very powerful, I think, and inspirational woman. She's actually one of Latin America's Forbes 35 under 35 makers there. So she's very inspired. It was very inspiring to work with, and I sent her this thing, and then exchanged some conversation, and then she was telling me, about her current job, and she's getting her degree over there, all this stuff. And she was bringing up this point where like she just wants to have it all figured out. And because she's doing so many things and like, you know, she just wants this more of this balance. And I actually then shared something with her that I was like on the spot thinking, and I go, you know, you really got to think about this whole thing like the stock market. You're not going to figure out all of life in 1 or 2 days. You're just not. It's going to be an evolving process. And you really have to think about life like investing. Every day, you should be dollar cost averaging or weekly, whatever. In life, every day, invest in yourself. And the payoff is not going to come, as I always like to say, get rich by Tuesday, is not going to come by Tuesday, but it will come. And you won't realize the wealth accumulation until the wealth accumulation is really there. And you get the full picture of all the nuggets that you've thrown into the market, of all the hard work, of each day that you've dollar cost average into the market. Only then at the end of the road, right? When life, you're kind of now retired in that retirement pasture, you're going to be like, ah, wow. That's why I went from this company to that company. That's why I did this. And, you know, that day was hard, but it was worth it. And it keeps going. And you look at it like this. And I said, so stop day trading. Start investing and bring it back to investing. Invest in your life in all areas. Like you won't see, I don't know if you're into photography, but you won't see on day one of photography how that's going to help you potentially as an investor. But at the right shot and the right angle and the patience and everything else, and it all ties together. And likewise with the stock market, investing, becoming an investor in the stock market has actually helped me through the lens of becoming an investor in life. Realizing it is all about the long game. It is every page I read in a book, every side project I do, I will never see the big picture when I do the thing. But when I make the investment, I will get paid the dividends. And those dividends will snowball. And that snowball at the end of the way, the end of the road, I'm going to look back and be like, wow, look at what I've built over decades. And I think that in of itself is just like this beautiful, eye-opening experience that if you're slow enough and observant enough to really see what's going on, being an investor in the stock market and in life is, I think, the entire point of life to begin with. All about the long game.
100%, man. And I think that was also very well said. And it takes two things to start. I mean, all of that sounds great. But a lot of people are like, okay, like, how do I guess win this game of life or, you know, whatever. And it takes two things. We can tie it back to investing too. It takes, number one, knowing the end goal. What is your reason for doing it? Having a sense of direction, basically, and being willing to start and continue taking or putting one step in front of the other. You know, when it comes to investing, what do I want to, why am I investing? Is it for retirement? Is it for some other goal? For pretty much all of us, it's just, you know, I want to buy back my time. I want to have ultimate freedom. And we can tie this into the American dream. I want to be able to have full control over my life. I think for a lot of us, that is the why. And then it becomes, okay, well, when? And, you know, you kind of reverse engineer it as we've talked about before. And then you just start doing it and you don't stop. And eventually, after a long period of time, you get to where you want it to go. But it's so hard for people to want to start anything, whether it's investing or some other thing that they're shooting for, when they don't know what that is. You know, this all sounds good. you just got to work hard at it and start and don't stop. And it's like, yeah, but start what? What? I don't know what to do. And it's a hard thing to think about. It ties back to that existential question: who am I, and what do I want out of this life? And that's not an easy thing to come to realize, you know. And so I think for a lot of people, it's easiest just to not think about it and just settle into wherever you find yourself and just coast. So, you know what I
I'm
mean?
going to make this controversial. I don't know if it's that controversial. I think, Ryne, you'll just agree with me, but curious to get everybody else's thoughts on this hardcore comment I got coming up. If you are someone out there, which I reckon a lot of people who are watching this are not in this camp, but you may know someone, you probably know someone in this camp, so show them this video in the deep end. When you say like, oh, like I don't know when to start or how to start, the irony is the game has already begun. You are losing. The hard truth, the game has begun.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can look at fellow investors around you, and I hate to say compare yourself, but you know what? I won't say compare yourself. I'm just going to say use them as motivation to get started, because the game has already begun. And if you're 25, if you're 30, and you're not steadfast in the process and a strategy and dollar cost averaging, you are losing the game. And you can ask any master of the market that I've had on that's been in like their late 40s or 50s that started way too late. Oh, what's the most crushing thing they share time and time again? And Ryne and I already feel this, and we started in our 20s. We started too late.
I wish I would have started sooner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you know, it's so funny, man. And I'm sure you get these comments too, but I'll get comments every once in a while from, I don't know who these people are, but the comment will say something like, you know, it's in reference to the amount of time it takes to build lasting wealth with this and build something meaningful. It's that comment that's like, yeah, you know, yeah, except it's going to take 30 years, or yeah, except it's going to take 20 years. Or it's like, yeah, but in 20 or 30 years or X years, however long it takes, you know, that $2,000 per month is going to basically buy you a loaf of bread. And you just hear from so many people who cannot escape that short-term thinking. They want there's always going to be people who want to get rich by Tuesday, but that's just not how it works. And that's why it is so important to start when you're younger. I mean, you can start when you're 40 and still retire by 70, but still if you started by 20, started at 20 or 25 or even 30, it's going to be a lot more of an enjoyable ride. You're going to have to contribute a lot less aggressively than if you started in your later years. And that's the big reason why time is so important. It's so much easier to start, whatever it is, honestly, whether it's investing or some other goal you have, it's so much easier to start when you're younger and don't have as many responsibilities and expenses. And, but it's hard. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of that person 10, 20, 30 years from now. It's hard to start something today with that person in mind. And you touched on something really important, I think, a few minutes ago. You said something like, the game's already going. And you basically said by not starting, you're already losing. And that's such an interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people realize, or it's easy to lose sight of. It's so much better to start something and, I guess, fail at it than it is to not start something at all. And it's such a cliche, but it's a much bigger loss to never start and never try than it is to try and have it not work out. And I'm just going to wrap it up there, or else I'll keep talking in circles. But I thought that was a really important point that you touched on.
Well, it's just, when I think about it, like, it doesn't make any sense when people are like, yeah, I'll start when, or, I don't know how to start. And I just want to be like, my friend, you've already started. Your inaction is the action that you've taken.
Yeah.
Like
Yes, dude.
your inaction is the action. And that's
Yeah.
all you have to do. $1 a day. Like, how many times, like today, literally, there's just no excuses today. $1 a day, fractional shares. I know I wouldn't recommend it, but like Acorns. But if that's where you're holding at Acorns, then Acorn away. You're
Yeah.
already better off than the person who hasn't even started.
100%. It's like I said earlier in the conversation, time is going to go either way. The world will continue to spin madly on whether or not you choose to start investing or not. And if this time is going to go anyway, if at some point you're going to be 60 years old or 65, you might as well do things now that are going to put yourself in a better position when you get to that point. Um, and you're going to be so much better off for it. You'll feel good. Like something, as you do more of that, something will shift inside of you, and you will feel better about who you are versus who you were. And that will compound on itself too over time.
With healthcare and healthcare advances and technologies getting better, like I'm just thinking like I feel the retirement age will naturally get pushed back, or at least like just the average lifespan will prolong itself because we're just advancing. We're already somewhat seeing that. And so that kind of begs the question, like, if healthcare continues to advance and like the average lifespan is now like 120 years, let's just say, in the course of a couple of few decades, that's not like that crazy, I feel like, in my mind. Wouldn't you still rather retire at 65 or at 50 or earlier just because you decided to start?
Heck yeah.
And then you just keep enjoying, life for how it should be lived, the American dream.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into that because I want to ask you what that even is. But to close the book on this point, I started reading this book about like the healthcare and the pharmaceutical industry.
Hills.
Really interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I saw. I don't think I didn't see that Instagram post with the book.
Yeah,
I'm all over your reads.
I wish I had it. I wish I had it in the room with me, or else I'd show you guys. The book is called 10 Drugs, but in the introduction, there was a stat that said every year the average human lifespan is expanding by 2 months, which means that every 6 years our lifespan will expand by a year, which means that help me with my math here. Every 6 years, we get a full year, which means every 36 years, we're getting 5 years. So I guess that's a decent amount of time, which means that maybe over your lifespan, you might be getting an extra, by the time you're 72, the average human lifespan might expand by an extra decade, if my math is right there. So that's pretty crazy. And then, if you live to be 100, then the average human lifespan would be extended by 15 years. So all of that's to say, to your point, Ari, as time goes on, we'll have more and more time to enjoy the fruits of our efforts today. So that's even more of a reason to get started.
There's just no, in my mind, like, I always say this, always when I sit with people, and whether it's coaching or working with people with addictions or like whatever it is, I always say you have the opportunity to make a choice to become a man or become a woman. Now, I personally believe, controversial comment, but the vast majority of people walking around the face of this planet remain boys and girls well into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. What does it mean to become a man or a woman? It means taking total responsibility, total responsibility for your actions, for your finances, everything. And not being, I mean, what ultimately is a child? Dependent on XYZ. Being independent is, in fact, being an adult. And I think that's so important. If you don't have your finances in order, I love when people tell me this, oh, yeah, I'll just rely on Social Security. I'm like, ha, like, you're going to rely on Social Security? Like, that's not going to, you're going to get like a half a donut, for breakfast or whatever. Like, that's not going to do anything. And even if, right, you're someone out there right now saying, well, I come from a well-to-do family. Well, let's just play that tape forward. What if that well-to-do family, something happens and they lose the money before you're able to get it? Like, you just don't know what life is going to present you with. The game has already begun. So why don't you start to play the game? Start to get in the game and play by the rules. But there's no reason like why you shouldn't be taking total responsibility, becoming the CEO of your own life, really advancing so your future self can bask in the wealth that you, the wealth tree that you've planted today. Like, I don't know, in my mind, it's just so simple.
It can be very, very simple. And to make the analogy or stick to the game analogy, maybe another way of saying it is, instead of being the CEO of your own life, become the main character of your own life. And think about it as if you were playing Fortnite, or as if you were playing Skyrim, or,
I've never even heard of that one. Is that a new one?
Oh yeah, it's a what's it called? There's a name for it, not sandbox style game. I guess it is a sandbox style game, but it's basically a this is gonna bug me. Skyrim. There's an acronym.
Man, the only
for it.
video games I really know of are like Madden and Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. Like those that's what I grew up on. And I've never played Fortnite in my life. I don't even know what that is.
Oh, RPG, role playing game. I was gonna say MVP. So Skyrim is called it's an RPG type game, role playing game. But basically, the whole point of the game is to level up your character, and you can give them all these different attributes. Better magic, better weapons, better pickpocketing skill. You can level up in all of these different areas. And when you think about it, you can do things in life and have a similar result. You can read to level up your mental skill set. You can go run to level up your physical skill set. You can invest to level up your financial skill set. And you can do all of these. Basically, it's the same idea. And at some point, I think this is kind of part of growing up too, is understanding that it's so much better to do that in your real life than it is to do it in some virtual life that really has no meaning. You shouldn't invest in skins in Fortnite before you invest in ETFs in your actual real life. And I don't remember how old I played video games pretty much my entire life growing up, but I remember at some point, probably like in my late teens or even early 20s, it just kind of stopped being interesting. And I think it stopped being interesting around the time that I started getting into lifting weights and exercising, because I think that's when I really first understood what I just said. It's basic. Life is just one big game, and you can do things in your life to level yourself up, and it feels good to do that. It feels so much more rewarding doing that than it does in this meaningless virtual world of Skyrim, or whatever the game is that you're playing, 2K, whatever.
I've never played Skyrim. Is that Skyrim?
Yeah.
Or like I said, Fortnite or any of these games. But there's one thing. Grand Theft Auto is I think the closest I got to what it sounds like these games are.
Well, you could do that. Like, there was a similar thing in Grand Theft Auto. Like, if you played San Andreas, you can go to the gym. You can exercise.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But what I really want to say is what you actually mentioned, which I thought was just epic. You mentioned this idea of instead of leveling up in a virtual world, level up in your own world. Like, what? That's so rich. That's so rich of a comment. Because today, I mean, and this is, by the way, what Alex, even just to loop back to this American dream, like Alex started off just by saying it's the younger generations that believe the American dream is no longer there. But maybe it's also, this is now me chiming in, maybe it's also because the younger generation is so busy playing video games in a ridiculous virtual world that they've totally failed themselves to be a player in the game of real life. That the American dream is seemingly so distant or dead to them because they're wasting all of their time. I'm not going to go easy on young kids that might be watching this. Like, you're wasting your time. Play it for an hour a day, whatever. My grandfather, I'll never forget this. We went to his house, all the 13 of us, grandchildren were sitting there watching some Sunday football. My grandfather walked in, voracious reader. I mean, brilliant, brilliant guy, a man of 7 languages, right? Like, just, they don't make them like this these days, right? I'm even outing myself here. Like, that generation where it was just like, yeah, 7 languages, did like 10,000 things. Guy had 9 patents.
He was a Renaissance man.
Yeah. Today we have like Fortnite men, right? Like, but I'll never forget sitting on the couch. All 13 of us are in there, and he walks in. He sits down for like half a second, and he goes, "What a waste of time. Everybody should be reading. If anybody wants to actually enrich themselves, I'll be in the kitchen telling a story." And I got up and I left. And like, just in that moment, I was like, why would I don't, like, I'm not, you can occasionally, I feel like, enjoy whatever, football or like Fortnite or do your things. But like, at what point do you actually really grow out of that and realize it's all a distraction? Like, when you really, I don't know if I talked about this last week on the deep end or if I was talking to somebody in passing. I read did I talk to you about this? I read a Jamie Dimon article. Did I mention, did I say anything?
I don't remember. It sounds familiar, but maybe if you keep talking, it'll jog my memory.
Read this, I was on LinkedIn and I read this Jamie Dimon article and I was just like, it hooked me from the get-go. And it talked about what Jamie Dimon does,
the newspapers and
yeah. So I did share this.
Okay. Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, basically I read the article and it alluded to Jamie Dimon waking up early and reading 7 newspapers, from cover to the back, 7 of them. And then it goes on to just say, like, everybody who's trying to get rich, like, they're trying to pick up self-help books and read self-help books. But like, what are the real leaders doing? The real CEOs and the real leaders who are leading the charge in terms of maybe the nation or the vast, businesses and enterprises. These leaders are not reading self-help. They are reading what makes the news, what makes you tick. And I just thought that, like, to kind of look at it like that, it's fascinating. So the want to get rich by Tuesday guy is going to Barnes and Noble or on Amazon, and they're picking up, like, How to Get Rich by Tuesday, by Motivation Mafia or whatever. I'm making all that up. But like, they're not picking up, economics books or history books or fine arts books or whatever may actually enrich them to be an investor. They're picking up like the get rich quick guys, and the get rich quick guys are making the money. And these guys are just thinking that they're getting these sparks of motivation and dopamine hits because, oh, nice, they finished, it was a good book. Mark Manson's, what book? He had Subtle Art of Not Giving a F.
Yeah.
And good book, but like, like, did you really get anything out of that?
You know which one gets me, dude? Is along the same lines, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I haven't read the book, but it's like you don't need to buy the book. Like, the secret is in the title. It's habit. come on. It's kind of like we were talking about. This is pretty much the bane of this podcast's existence. It's daily, weekly, consistent disciplines that stack up and compound over time. It's
Yeah.
whatever it is. You can literally pick anything that you want to do. That's the secret. You don't need to read Atomic Habits. You just need to know that things don't happen overnight, and you just start, put one foot in front of the other. Eventually, you'll be there. That's the secret. Um,
Mentioning the secret, do you know what the big secret is? To the secret,
no.
start.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, okay. There you go.
sometimes you read a book like again, it's only really these self-help books. You can't read a history book title and be like, I know all of the history. But like, I like that you use that. Atomic Habits. Okay, it's there in the title. The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. That's also kind of there in the title. Like, don't focus on things that don't matter, and like, then just ask yourself, does this really matter? That was always a question I ask myself when I'm speaking with somebody and it's like a petty argument or whatever it is. Is this going to matter in a week from now, in a month from now, in a year from now, in a decade from now? And if your answer is no, move on. It's all going to work out. It's going to be good. You're going to get sucked in to whatever drama, and you're going to ultimately kill your wealth opportunity.
Yeah. So 51 minutes now into the conversation. Finally, I want to ask you, man. We keep kind of dancing around this, but I officially want to dive into this. What is the American dream? What is it? If you had to define it.
I'm going to define it as what I think it once was to what it has now become, because I think that's important.
So you think it's evolved? There's been an evolution of it. Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
I think that the American dream at one point was just about being able to have enough money to buy a home, retire at the age of 65, and throughout that journey, feel comfortable and stable. I think that was all a part of the American dream at one point. You get a good job, you have a good house, a good home, you got your wife and your kids, and it's kind of picture perfect-esque, if you will. It was a very, very comfortable life. And the wealth in and of itself didn't come from like being a billionaire with a B, a billionaire. The wealth came from literally owning a home, having a car, having kids. Your kids go to school. It was like, that's the nice American dream. I think where we've shifted to, the American dream, which may actually play into why so many feel that the American dream is dead, is because the mindset has become the American dream is becoming a multi-millionaire. The American dream is becoming a billionaire. The American dream is about owning yachts and big houses, multiple big houses, and, the bling, right? Like, the American dream has evolved as we've evolved and changed our conception of like what wealth is. But the reality is, I think those of Alex Green, I think where Alex Green's even coming from, or what I'm about to share, is that those living in reality, the American dream is not necessarily becoming the multi-millionaire or billionaire and the yachts and the cars and this and that. The American dream has simply become, and I don't want to say just owning a house now and a car, because I'd like to say it just comes down to one word: freedom. The freedom to do what you want, when you want. And I think that's ultimately what the American dream, for those who are really in reality, has become. I want to retire at 40, not 65. I want to, travel the world. It all comes down to freedom today. And I think if this is what the American dream has evolved into. I don't think decades, like if we went back to like the 1950s and you said that, I don't think that would fly. Like you'd be a hippie. And actually that wasn't even the hippie era. Like you'd be a little cuckoo, They'd be like, "All right, relax, buddy." Like but I think that's ultimately today it's just freedom. Earn your freedom. Earn the American dream. And to Alex's point, what he was sharing is it's possible. It's more possible now than ever. A matter of fact, I am stealing this directly from Alex, so you will have to kind of go see Alex's stuff to check more into this. But Alex, based on his research, shared that he's projecting that there will be 20 million new millionaires in the coming decade. 20 million new millionaires if they stick to the process of saving and investing. What do you think about the American dream, Ryne?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm going to apologize in advance because this is probably going to be kind of long-winded.
We're going in the deep end.
yeah, exactly. But I think this is a really important conversation to have. I'm so stoked that we're doing this. This is fun. So I do think you touched on something really important in the sense that people have a tendency to tie their success to these material things, whether back in the day it was a house, the car, the picket fence, whatever, versus today where it seems that the goalposts have moved, and now you're not successful unless you're making 6 figures minimum, unless you've got a Maserati, unless you've got, a yacht, can fly on private jets, have social media money. It seems like the goalposts have moved more towards that, which obviously has come with the advent of social media and it being easier and easier to compare yourself to complete strangers, not just in your local neighborhood, but all around the world. That's certainly done a disservice, I think, to a lot of people's psyches and their, where they feel in relation to others in life. It's really like put the idea of keeping up with the Joneses on a grand scale, which is not a great thing. And that, I think we can tie to why there's such a big problem with spending and poor financial habits. I think that can have a lot to do with it. People feeling an increased sense of pressure to, keep up with those around them and what they have, because they're not just comparing themselves to their next door neighbor anymore. They're now comparing themselves to people, like Saudi royalty who they can see on Instagram or something like that. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just completely warped the general idea of what is success and what is not. Now, as far as the American dream goes, I think it's something different, slightly different. And I think it was and is today more about being able to pursue the opportunities that you find worthwhile and fulfilling. I think that's what why a lot of people want to be here. And I think when you think about the American dream, it's what that is. And you kind of touched on it. It's the freedom to pursue that. And I think that's, I don't see any reason to believe why that's still not intact. And I actually think with social media and the internet, that the ability to do that has expanded beyond just this country. I mean, you're not living in the States and you have the freedom to do that. So you're kind of, you can live the American dream on the other side of the world. So with that said, as far as the American dream, that what I just described being dead or alive, I think it's very much alive. I do think, though, that there are things that have made it in people's minds more difficult to pursue the things they want to. Number one is because now everything is so public, what you do is put out there for the world to see, and that can be scary. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier. If you try something and you fail, that is now on public display. And I think that's one thing that keeps people from pursuing the opportunities that they want to, is the fear of other people knowing that they could fail. But at the same time, taxes are higher today than they were in the past. Things are generally more expensive than they were in the past. So I do think that people feel a bit hamstrung by just the higher cost of living today versus in the past. I do think that that plays a role. And as far as some of the material stuff when it comes to the house, I do think that's part of it. It's one of those big life things that everyone wants to check off is being a homeowner. And yeah, that's seems to have become a lot harder. That seems to be harder today than it was in the past. But at the same time, you shouldn't let that stop you from trying. You shouldn't make excuses to the point of paralysis. When it comes to being successful generally, it's really not about being the brightest, being the smartest, having the most money. It just being successful in life generally, and being able to realize that dream, whatever it is for you, it's in a lot of ways, it's just about not being stupid, not doing stupid things, not making bad decisions, having good habits. And, like we've talked
Atomic
about throughout
habits.
this entire conversation, continuing to put one foot in front of the other in the right direction. While at the same, and kind of like you said, Ari, like in the grand scheme of things, if you want to build wealth, you want to have a good life, it's not complicated. It's simple. It's as simple as living below your means and doing the right thing. And if you can do those things across a long period of time, I think you'd be very surprised at just how far you can go in life.
I want to share this because it's just the opportune time that I can share this. But Ryne and I can sit here day in and day out, video by video, and I can attest for Ryne. Ryne is giving you his strategy. Every video he puts out, that is his legitimate strategy. There's nothing he's hiding. And there are some YouTubers, by the way, that do hide what they're doing. They might show one portfolio and have, whatever other, whatever. Ryne is legitimately giving you everything. On my channel, my portfolio, what you see is what you get. I am giving you my strategy. The secret sauce to both Ryne and my portfolios, they're there. The crazy part, what I'm about to say, is the punch. Many people, successful people, will outright give you their strategy. But the vast majority of people out there will see Ryne's strategy, see my strategy, see successful people's strategies, and they won't do it. They just won't do it. And Gary Vaynerchuk, always talks about this. The reason why he always comes right out and just gives someone a success strategy for the masses is because 99% of people, even if you give them the exact recipe, won't do it. Because it either takes too much work or it just takes consistency, and inconsistency will kill the wealth opportunity. And so the crazy part is, I remember I was helping someone start up a business about 2 years ago now. And he was like, man, you know what I've noticed about you that I really admire? You are the most consistent person I know. And I said, well, that's a part of the formula to success. It's not about, trying and winning the first time. It is literally about failing 900 million times or not achieving what you wanted to achieve 900 million times. But every day you're getting a little bit closer. And then all of a sudden it's that consistency. It's and we can both attest to this on YouTube. Growing a YouTube presence is not an easy business. You start from zero. And all of a sudden you get
you're
terrible.
Absolutely suck. Go back and watch our first videos, guys. I can't do it because I throw up. I just get sick watching myself.
Man, I used to do some I don't know what to talk about it. Go watch the videos for yourself, but it's atrocious. And little by little, like you just consistency will get you to the next step. And
Yeah.
the next step brings you to more consistency, and more consistency gets you to the next step. It's just crazy. Like what $1 can do per day at a fractional share over the course of decades. Instead of taking that, or we can up the ante for the people who just buy a coffee a day. Just that $5 to $7 a day. I just, just start. Just be consistent. Don't lose out on the opportunity to win the game of life when you're already playing it, even if you don't know it. You're in it right now.
Yep. You don't have to be a genius. You just have to basically do the right thing. And the thing is, you know what the right thing is. You don't have to be brilliant. You just have to do the right thing, which is always going to be the hard thing. And it's always going to be the thing that you don't want to do. But at the end of the day, you'll be much better off for it. And I'm kind of a weirdo in the sense that I get like a kick out of doing things like that. I like doing things that I know other people are not willing to do. I'm such a weirdo in that way. Like, it makes me want to do it even more. People don't want to invest and set aside money for their future. I'm going to set aside even more money just because of that. People don't want to go out for even just to walk around the block. I'm going to go run a 10K and then sign up for a half marathon. I'm just such a weirdo in that way.
It's because I gotta back you up here with some positivity. It's not that you're a weirdo. It's that you've tasted success. And and once you know what success tastes like, you're forever changed. And that's really what happens. Like you got success in the gym. If you got success in the gym from a consistent process, the only thing that you did is you applied that to investing, and you're like, if that worked there, it probably works here.
Yes.
And like that's a part of the secret sauce where it's like, oh, it's all connected. Like the mindset is all connected. If I just lift, weights and add 2 pounds, like the that big 2.5 pound plate that you can sometimes add to the bench press, and it may feel like 1,000,000 pounds, but like it actually works. When I used to be a trainer, I actually used to, and I always loved the big guys that would walk in that I would like to pick things up and put them down. I'm like, dude, have you ever like tried like a dumbbell at 10 pounds, just moving very slow and like holding? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it will feel like 1,000,000 pounds.
Yeah, man, it's that time under tension.
Yeah. And so it's just like that big 2.5% or 2.5 pound plate. That consistency, add that on every time you hit a PR. All right, try that 2.5 pound plate next. Mm-hmm. And it's okay. That's so silly. 5 pounds I'm going to put on total. No, you're thinking in the minutes and in the hours, and I'm thinking in decades.
Dude, that's spot on. And the crazy thing is too, once that starts clicking in your head, that progressive overload over time, because that's what it is when you incrementally add weight, even if it's 2.5 pounds per week over a long period of time, that's going to make a big difference. And understanding that incremental progress and that progressive overload, it's once that starts clicking, you start finding more enjoyment in the process of making that progress. And it's like, yeah, you might have started working out or whatever to just look buff and get girls or whatever, but at a certain point it shifts and you start to find enjoyment in the process of doing that hard thing. You improve just for the sake of seeking improvement, or you do the hard work just for the sake of seeking improvement, and you find enjoyment in that process. And then, like you said, you can transfer that over into other things, whether it's, investing. You start off with nothing and it sucks, but you start to notice that progress. You carry that over into this other thing, and you can go down all these different directions with the same idea of progressive overload. It's one of those timeless principles where your previous work will build on itself. And that's just how you level up as the main character in your life. That's all it is when you get to the root of it.
I'm going to say this too. You mentioned, I think, for the masses of people, the relatable term, weirdo. And I think I alluded to the not so understood terminology, because again, literally so few people actually get the opportunity to really taste success. I book my schedule out the way that it's booked out because of what I've experienced. Success. And it's the thrill of like that pure enjoyment. It's a love. I love being busy. I have two TVs. I got one in front of me and one in the bedroom. I've never even turned them on. This one's not even plugged in. I don't even know why this is here. Like, okay, I had it come with the apartment, but like, I have never even turned the thing on. I don't have time. I got a couch here that my dog enjoys more than I do, and I'm happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time in my life to waste. I want to live each and every moment. I think, again, it goes back to that American dream. That's the dream. I love my life so much and all the freedoms and everything that I'm doing. Why would I want to sit on the couch and watch TV? I'd much rather be on this conversation. I'd much rather read a book. I'd much rather like that. It's the taste of success. I got this much better today. Tomorrow I hope to get this much better.
Yeah, once you start having different avenues where you can do that in your life, it becomes a pretty intoxicating thing, and then you start seeking it elsewhere. And so, like when I look at all of my different, my different hobbies, it all is that's a commonality in all of them. The idea of progress and improvement over time. I think there's a Japanese word for this called kaizen or something like that, which is literally just the idea of continuous improvement. And I carry that into all of the different things I do, whether it's investing, started without any experience, have gotten better over time. I think you guys might disagree in the comments. Working out, same thing. It was like I couldn't even lift the bar, and 15 years later, it's a whole different story. Running, dude, I could 2 months ago, I could hardly run like a 5K without like keeling over. And right before this conversation, and that was at like a 10-minute pace too, 10-minute plus pace. And it's like, I just ran 7 miles before this conversation at an 8.5-minute pace. So it's just that continuous improvement through those, regular disciplines. YouTube, just like we talked about, sucked. But over time, you just keep making more videos, and you find your groove with it. And I like adding things like that into my life. I think poker's another one of them. I was kind of talking about that at the beginning of this conversation. I'm really not good, but it's a total craft, and it can really help you get better at decision making and probability, and also understanding human behavior and understanding yourself as well. And there's just so many ties to investing that. Yeah, I look forward to getting better at that over time too. And you could make some pretty good money doing that if you get good enough. So
Ryan's going rogue in Vegas.
And that's another thing too. I mean, I live in kind of the mecca for it, so I should at least be able to know my way around a poker table, So I think that'll be another fun thing to get better at over time.
Next book on the list, Counting Cards.
There you go. There you go. No, this is a good conversation, man. Talking about this stuff, I feel like we go in circles about it. But these are some of my favorite themes to explore. And when I think about my channel, when I think about my investment journey so far, really just these ideas that we've talked about in this conversation, that's the only reason that I am doing the things that I'm doing today. I'm not that smart. I'm not that, I don't have a genius level IQ or anything like that. It's just been that idea of continuous improvement.
Well, at the end of the day, that's it. It's consistency in everything that you do. If you really want something, and you shared something when you were mentioning poker, you're like, I'm not that great. And I wanted to chime in. I just didn't want to cut you off. I wanted to say yet.
Yeah, right.
Because I know you. Like, you'll just keep playing poker. And eventually you're going to be like, I'm pretty I know you're also very humble, so you're never going to say it, but you're going to turn into a good poker player. And that's the thing. Like, I've watched it, for anybody who's watched Ryne or follows Ryne on Instagram, he's always posted. It's like a white page with the amount of the mileage and like the time, and it's just like every day, and it's just you could see this incremental increases in consistency. Like, that's all it is. And now it's 7 miles before he jumped on this call. And I think that's even worth noting. What were all of you doing before you listened to this podcast? Were you running 7 miles? Were you in the gym? Were you looking up your portfolio, your strategy for the day? Like, what are you doing in the off hours? Do you have off hours? And how like, it's okay to have some time for yourself that's needed, but how long do you need? How long do you really need? And when does it become a fine line, again, like between being that couch potato and a player in the actual game of life?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong too. Like, I think people can hear that and take away from it that they need to constantly be grinding, constantly be hustling and that sort of thing. But I just don't. I'm not that type of person. I'm not a go 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 type of person. Even though based on this conversation, maybe it seems like that's the mindset. It's not. But I think that you need to find things in life that you can continuously work at and improve on. It doesn't have to be running. It doesn't have to be working out. For a lot of us, investing, for all of us watching, investing is one of those things. But it could be brewing beer. That's what I was talking about that earlier in this video. Like, that's a craft that you can improve on. It could be something like that. And there's so many other examples too. Knitting, whatever it is you're into. I would highly encourage everyone to find something or some things that they can work at playing piano, actually, instruments. That's perfect. Guitar, piano, anything like that. Add something like that in your life if you don't already have it. And pursue those things regularly. And I think that you'll, if you don't already, you'll come to realize, come around to this understanding of a lot of the stuff we've talked about here, and then you can carry it over into other areas of your life. And I think you have to do that. You have to experience it for yourself to get the confidence to know, even though I suck at XYZ today, if I just start, kind of like I just started this other thing, over time I'll get better. And then the fear of not starting, or the fear of what people think, going back to now the Mark Manson's book or whatever his name is, the fear of what other people think, it just kind of dissolves, because it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. What matters is that you try and keep trying and never give up, and over time you'll just come to get better at whatever that thing is.
That's it. I think we'll wrap up. But I'll close this out here just by posing a question for everybody out there. What is your American dream, and how are you striving to achieve it? Let Ryne and I know down there in the comments. We really do, after we read a lot of these comments, always talk to each other about the comments and which comments really pull at our heartstrings. And it really is, for us, such a joy and a privilege and an honor to read the comments below, and to just know that you guys are listening and appreciating the conversation or taking things away. Because, again, like Ryne and I always say, we're here for you guys to add value, hopefully, to your life. But what is your American dream? How are you achieving it? And if you're not, a listener or viewer from America, what is your XYZ dream, your life dream? And how are you striving to achieve it? We would love to know. And with that, investors,
real quick, can I add something? I have another question sorry, man. I have another question to build on that. Also, let us know too, like, what that thing is for you that you work on continuously improving. Maybe you play the drums. Maybe you're into woodworking. Maybe you're into pottery. If you have something like that in your life, I'd be really curious to know what that is, because obviously we all share this investing hobby in common. We all have that, but what else do you have that's kind of along the lines of everything we've discussed?
For how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, I'm just curious to know. Yeah, because I think everyone's got something like that. If you've been like woodworking
for years or playing an instrument, and maybe you still don't feel like you are the next John Mayer if you're a guitarist, but like, how long have you been playing the guitar? And how many hours per day do you put into it? Give us the details, the juicy stuff. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
So with that, investors, we'll see you in the next go-round of the Deep End next week right here. Looking forward to having all of you join us.